That's Mary's. Miss Mona, Miss Bernard, you want to go ahead and wait until after his presentation to give your presentation, or you want to move it? What do you think is best? The way it is? The way it is? Okay. Okay, we'll call the meeting to order. It's 5:01. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here. I want to go ahead and get started with the agenda item 2.1, Group Health Plan Budget Analysis and Savings Alternatives. Ms. Bernard, or Ms. Bernard?
Thank you, Mr. Hidalgo. We have with us Len Fontaine from Hub, which is our health plan consultant. And as we have asked him to do, he's come back to give us some options for savings alternatives on the plan. So I'll invite Len to come up and go over the presentation.
All right, good evening, everyone. I'm going to walk through or present to you budget analysis along with savings alternatives based upon plan experience and the projected savings that we got from the various alternatives here. So we'll, let me make sure I'm not, okay, we're on the right page. So we'll begin with the budget analysis, and this starts with the 2016 paid claims figure. This is our actual paid claims number from the calendar year of 2016, which is $43,442,132. We've trended that 6% to account for the increased health care cost. We project out the Humana premium. Affordable Care Act cost, which is minimal. We've gotten through most of the majority of our high-cost years on that. Our projected prescription drug rebate savings that we'll see this year. Our fixed costs projected out at right under $3 million to give us, if we add all of these items, we come to a projected plan cost of $48,845,689. If we take our current participation and look at our funding and annualize that, our projected annualized funding is $48,681,816. With the projected plan cost and projected funding, a minimal increase was recommended to cover the increasing plan costs and additionally to provide reserves for those claims that are incurred and unreported. If we were to terminate the plan today, we would obviously have to have funds to take care of any claims that were incurred and unreported. So you have to have those reserves calculated into the projected cost and projected funding. We also talked about benefit alternatives and savings initiatives could be considered to recommend and offset the increase. And then, of course, this third bullet was with regard to the out-of-pocket maximums that we had in 2015, where we went to in 2016. Basically, in 2015, we had $7,550 of out-of-pocket maximum, which in 2016 went down to $4,950. That did have an impact on the cost of the plan. This is a quick summary of our plan costs. Actually, I'm going to go to the next page and give it to you on a per employee per month number, because this compares, it's easier to make the comparison because we're comparing 3 months to a full year. So you can see from the top our participation hasn't changed much. Basically, if you look at total plan cost, where we were at $716 for 2016. We're down to $622 right now, which is our medical claims are down 16%. Our prescription drugs down 15.3. A portion of this is seasonal. I do suspect that our claims will come up in the beginning of the year. You do know that we have deductibles, co-insurance, as people meet their out-of-pocket maximums, their deductibles. And of course, summer months are always typically high for school systems. So I expected the first quarter numbers to be favorable, but also it gives us a little room in our calculations as well. So not only is our funding currently at the same level as our planned expenses for 2016, we don't see that the first quarter, we don't have a big increase in planned costs that would factor into needing a larger increase in the plan. This is just an overview of our current benefits. Our PPO basic plan is where we have the majority of the participation, a $950 deductible, maximum out of pocket of $4,350, and then our prescription drugs with that maximum out of pocket of $600. So that $4,950 out-of-pocket maximum once again compares to the 2015 that was over $7,000. So pretty significant increase in benefits in the 2016 plan years compared to 2015. An overview of how we compare with other school systems. Looking across the board here, we compare at market or favorable from a benefit standpoint, also especially from a contribution standpoint with the other school systems. And many of these, if you look at the number of lives at the top, are very similar to our size, some smaller, but some a little larger as well. And then, of course, comparing to the Office of Group Benefits. There are several in there, St. Tammany, Ascension, Calcasieu, a number of the larger ones that we used here. East Baton Rouge is in there. I can't name them all, but I can get that to you. So from a savings alternative, we looked at several different benefit alternatives, and the emphasis here was to look at benefit alternatives that had the least amount of impact to the plan members, employees, their dependents, retirees, their dependents as well, and to give us the most amount of savings for the least impact to our plan members. The first bullet here was to bring our basic PPO's medical out of pocket from the $4,350, and remember that the $4,350 was much lower than where we were before, and bring it back to $4,950. The projected savings there basically right at $180,000 at $179,906. On the enhanced PPO from $3,600 to $4,200. And that brings a savings of about $46,130. Obviously, much less participation in that plan, so the savings number is not as great. Increase the prescription drug co-payments from $1030.60 on our schedule there to $1540.70. Reasoning here, our prescription drug utilization is the highest rising cost in the plan. Also, when you're talking about the increased drug costs from the manufacturers, if we keep our co-payments stagnant, the plan continues to pay a much larger percentage of that prescription drug. Many of these generic drugs were under $10 years ago and are well over $10 today. The projected savings on that $325,856, increasing the prescription drug out of pocket from the current. It's 10%. I'm sorry. That's 10% to a maximum of 150. I apologize. On the next bullet, we're increasing the prescription drug maximum out of pocket from $600 to $1,000, still much lower than where it was in 2015. Projected savings there close to $500,000 at $494,470. The next one really is not a change in benefit, it's a change in our pharmacy network. If we exclude Walgreens and Rite Aid, we get a better negotiated rate from our pharmacy benefit manager, projected annual savings there, about $180,000. We looked at this from the standpoint that where we have most of the locations of Walgreens and Rite Aids, basically there's a CVS across the corner, and CVS is our largest provider in the network. They have the lion's share of the business at present. And then finally, this is not a benefit change or a network change or anything like that. This Vital Smart Shopper program is a tool that allows the plan member to basically shop medical providers within the network. So for example, if you have to have an MRI or diagnostic work, or let's say a knee replacement, or any type of procedure, you can go in online, you can use your smartphone, you can use telephone, and they will give you instant information with all of the in-network providers and give you cost, and you can make comparison, but more importantly, there is a financial reward to the membership. So let's use MRI, for example. In a 50-mile radius, let's say that there's 5 different in-network providers to provide that service, and the range in price goes from $1,000 to $2,000. Obviously, if we move more folks to that $1,000 provider, we're going to save money, and it's worth our while to reward the plan member for making that smart choice. So if there's a $50, $100 reward to the member, and we net $950 or $900 of savings, everybody wins. So this program doesn't change a benefit. It can actually make the plan member better off financially, and it makes the plan much better off financially. The projected savings are, yes ma'am. Correct. Okay, there's going to be a mile radius to choose from. It's totally voluntary. Okay, you don't have to go in and do this at all. It's a voluntary program. But some members might drive 50 miles. Some members might drive 75 miles if it puts $100, $200 in their pocket. Some members won't.
1 second, I'm sorry. This meeting, as always, is recorded. We need questions and answers on the microphone, so I'm going to get a portable mic to you in just a second, if you'll give us a second. Question?
Saving money, I think, is a great idea, but I do know that there's one local place that runs MRIs that 2 of my family members who are in the medical field say they never send their patients there because the MRIs just aren't up to speed like they are in Lafayette. So not all MRI machines are beneficial.
Well, another thing, doesn't the doctor have some say-so in that, where you get certain procedures?
So remember that we're only talking about in-network providers. Okay, so all of the providers in Blue Cross's network have already passed credentialing. On top of that, there's also, just when you go online to buy a pair of shoes, and there's going to be information with regard to their service and consumer information there about outcomes. That type of information is there as also.
Well, you had mentioned knee replacement, and that's done by a surgeon, an orthopedist. So that's, you're saying you can shop around for an orthopedist?
Yes.
Okay.
You know, so,
Lynn, on the website, is there a certain code, like for an MRI that's a particular, how do we know it's the right MRI? I mean, is it, how simplified is the process of shopping that? Because being on the high deductible plan, I really love this idea, because I do, on the high deductible plan, shop as a consumer for my med, and I would love to know that an x-ray down the street is a couple of $1,000s cheaper than one that is not across the street. And it's very difficult to find in an easy sort of way. So I really like the process of doing this and making it voluntary and benefiting the member who chooses to do it. I think is also a very good idea, because then the member benefits from their efforts to save the plan money.
so to answer your question, you really don't have to come up with any type of diagnostic code. Basically, if you're using your smartphone, you'll just type in MRI. If you want to get to some real specific details, you can call them toll free. There'll be a lot of education around this program. Remember, it's voluntary, but there are going to be a lot of members, especially if you utilize the high deductible health plan, that you can wind up saving yourself a great deal of money. And it gives you good information. That's one of the problems with healthcare, is we don't have much consumerism in it that allows us to shop, compare, and make good decisions on our healthcare. There was another question here?
I have one, but I want to back up to the Walgreens, and so if anybody wants to go ahead of me and finish on this item, but I want to go back and ask why Walgreens and Rite Aid, particularly Walgreens, is being excluded, or they're asking for it to be. CVS is, I've been with CVS before, and I really don't want to go back to them. And in Scott, they're almost closing down. Their shelves are bare, and CVS doesn't have a good reputation right now across the country. They're closing 60 stores, from what I understand. So what's the idea behind that?
It's purely pricing. Purely pricing. We're
Pricing?
getting a better deal from
So you can
CVS.
get so they will offer a better deal on the prescriptions
Yes, ma'am.
in the beginning anyway, until they start moving it up.
Most of the moves up in prescription drug costs is from the drug manufacturer.
Okay, so it may start out one way, it could end up another. It just limits us. That's all I'm saying.
I was curious what the cost was on the Vital Smart Shopper program, and why haven't we been offering this already?
The Vital Smart Shopper program is new to Blue Cross. Actually, they just started this program within the last couple of months. And from a cost standpoint, we're going to enter into a contract that provides no cost to the system. They'll keep a percentage of the savings until that savings is great enough to allow us to pay a fee. So we don't lose any money. If nobody uses it, it doesn't cost us a penny.
Oh, it'll get used.
Now, the $80,000 of savings is a very minimal number, but that's going to grow and grow quickly. The reason we're using a low conservative number is because as the word gets out, as education gets out, and people utilize it and begin to utilize it more and more, that number will grow and could well reach 7 figures in the next few years.
And do those educational efforts come from Blue Cross Blue Shield? Do they come from your office? Are they coming from Lafayette Parish School System? Where are they coming from?
With regard to the Vitals program,
Yes. Who's going to be
will come
educating
from
the
Blue
employees?
Cross, Vitals, and Hub. All righty. So when we take into account all of the projected savings, that totals up to $1,306,912. if we look at these considerations, in order to get to a 3% increase, we needed about $973,000. So the benefit cuts to take us from 5, which I feel comfortable with, especially with our first quarter numbers looking favorable. The $973,000 figure is what we needed. When we, the second bullet, when we increase our medical out-of-pocket maximum for both PPO options, remember, we're still talking about a number that's far less than the benefits you had in 2015. Increasing the out-of-pocket maximum, and if you remember, when we talked about looking at benefit alternatives that had the least amount of impact and ample savings, when you increase an out-of-pocket maximum, 82% of the plan members have claims of less than $5,000 annually, so you're only affecting a small percentage of the plan members. I think we had a question before I go on.
No, I just wanted to make a statement. When you refer to the 2015 premiums and the out-of-pocket that we were paying, that we had 2 consultants that really messed up our insurance that year. And there was a change of the board, and there was a lot of things that were happening. So we went with those larger numbers. But that's why we hunted for a consultant to go down. We do not want to go back to those larger numbers because they were really penalizing all the employees in Lafayette Parish. So I don't want to refer to that at all. I don't want to be compared to that because it was a wrong time and it was a wrong action. Thank you.
Mr. Fontaine, when did the plan go from $7,500 max out of pocket to
$49.50?
No, we want to go to $49.50, correct?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
When did the plan go from $7,500 max out of pocket to $43.50 or whatever it's at right now?
The $43.50 was effective 1/1/17.
1/1/17. So not 2015, not 2016, 2017. Now, because of that issue and error, whatever you want to call it, how much more money has the plan cost because of the change from $7,500 max out of pocket to $43.50?
Well, if you take that projection of savings, and basically that's your number.
Who has paid for the difference in cost? Is it the member or is it the taxpayer?
It's the member that's actually paid for that.
The premium didn't go up. The benefit went down, the cost went up, but the member's premium hasn't gone up.
In that instance, it's the plan. It's the
Plan
that's paid.
administration. Thank you.
Correct.
Thank you.
So if we talk about this next bullet with regard to the prescription drugs, and I touched on that when I introduced that alternative, the copay changes that we are recommending on prescription drugs are really needed to keep us in line because, you know, as I've talked to you before about, if we don't ever change our benefits and the cost of a gallbladder operation goes up every year, the plan keeps paying a higher percentage, but the plan member's cost does not change, and we know that healthcare costs are going up every year. The area of the plan that is growing the quickest as far as increased costs is prescription drugs, with so many of these generics coming on board and the cost increase over the years with regard to that. And if you remember the $4 Walmart prescriptions, things like that, many of those drugs never even hit the plan as far as cost goes, because if they were under your $10 copay, you just paid whatever the cost of the drug was. So not many of those drugs are still under $10. They've increased in cost, and it's cost the plan and not the plan member. So this is more to keep us in line with the increase in prescription drug costs, as well as to bring in savings into the plan. We've touched on the Walgreens and Rite Aids, and then the projected savings, as I said before, are very conservative, and therefore the 3% should be ample from a funding standpoint. Yes, ma'am.
I just want to reiterate what was said earlier about CVS. A lot of us had experiences with CVS previously that were not constructive experiences. And I have a concern about going to a single major provider. I understand, I mean, you're saying it's going to cost $186,000. Is it $186,000 or $180,000 more? Is it purely because, so you saying Walgreens and Rite Aid are charging us more for prescription drugs? Is that what you're saying?
Correct. In our pharmacy benefit management arrangement, it costs us more for the drug to be filled at those two providers than the rest of them.
It's just hard to fathom if they're going to lose all of the Lafayette Parish school system business that they wouldn't look at lowering some of their prices.
These are not local contracts, these are national contracts.
That's a different story. But I still have concerns about going to, if we're just stuck with CVS and CVS decides to go up high, then what do?
We renegotiate.
Well, we can't negotiate now with Rite Aid and Walgreens.
Did they bring more than these three pharmacies to the table to negotiate, or how did that work?
Currently, you know that within your network, you can basically go to any drugstore. I don't know of a drugstore that's not in your network. Remember, the only two that are being removed with this recommended option is Walgreens and Rite Aid. All of the rest of the drugstores are still within the network.
Okay, so you're not just limited to CVS right now.
Limited to
Okay,
CVS
they just
whatsoever. You can go to locals, you can go to other chains.
Okay, thank you.
So if you like Target, for example, or Walmart, anything like that.
Okay. You said that we went to the lower copay in 17. We went to the lower copay on January the 1st, 2016. In 2015, we had the higher. We went to the lower then, and you were hard during this period. And so we were at a lower copay in 2016, beginning January 1st.
I think she was referring to my comment, and I did not say we went to a lower copay. I said we went to a lower deductible, and I'm referring to maximum out of pocket, and then I'm referring to the switch that happened for 2017. Okay, you can say it 10 times. It's still not validated. Thank you. Thank you.
So I'm going to.
There's plenty of room to chat outside of these doors. We're going to keep it. We're going to keep a process in this room. Thank you.
Yes. And just quick clarification on that. The $7,750 was the out-of-pocket maximum in effect in 2015. You did go to the $4,950 in 1/1/16. On 1/1/17, you kept $4,950. It was a combination of medical and prescription drugs. Right. 40.
We're trying to go to $4,950. We were not at $4,950 because if we were, we wouldn't be trying to go to $4,950. So we were at $4,350
For medical.
for medical.
And then you have
Correct.
prescription drugs.
Correct.
Okay.
Just medical. I'm referring to just
Correct.
medical. Now,
You are.
when you include prescription drug, you add the $600. Well, it was $600. $600. Correct. I'm referring just to medical.
Perfect.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So, on our next page gives you, if we have these alternatives and we go to a proposed 3% increase, this shows you where our rates are currently, both employee, system share, total, and what the projected or the proposed 3% increase rates would be. And we're from your basic PPO plan, obviously your highest participant is the employee or retiree only. You're talking about a $4 increase to the member, on up to families with employee retiree with 2 or more, $18 a month. So the combination of these benefit alternatives along with the 3% will give us the proper funding to support our plan costs without having to increase rates at any type of 5 or 7% level.
Mr. Fontaine, to get to the 3% increase and maintain that 3% and not be above 3%, it says here we need approximately $973,637 worth of cuts. Am I understanding that correctly?
Correct.
And this is just the basic PPO, that's not the high or the enhanced, the high deductible or enhanced. You're just going up on the...
I have the enhanced for you.
Okay. So everything would be going up, everybody's. But the high deductible?
High deductible is very minimal.
$1. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Fontaine, the calculations you provided and the considerations are the plan as it is today, considering the proportion of, the number of members in basic, the number of members in enhanced. In other words, if no one changed the type of plan that they have, this would be the outcome.
Correct. It's all based on your current claims activity and your current participation.
On that note, I was curious, have we actually done a cost analysis on the basic plan, the enhanced plan, and the high deductible as far as a per contract, per month cost for each of those?
We've looked at that, yes, sir.
Because I did one in 2015 when the maximum out of pocket was much higher for the basic than it is currently, and even what we're proposing for it to be. And for every contract that is a high deductible, it saves our system $86 per month. And to go up on the high deductibles, even a minimal amount, is counterproductive. Matter of fact, I would like to see if we can investigate the possibility of offering a fourth option, an HRA, to encourage more people to get onto a high deductible and save our system money.
We can explore that, definitely. The rate structure that you have right now, and of course some of this will increase over the years with more education and things like that, but when you can pay $149 or $153 for a plan with co-payments, with the utilization in your plan, your people are obviously participating or want to have that higher benefit level. And one of the reasons that your numbers are going to look good on the high deductible health plan option is because of the demographic and the membership there. If I were a healthy member, I would certainly be taking a hard look at the high deductible health plan because it's going to save me money and I don't have the claims or the medical history to warrant choosing a plan with co-payments, so to speak. My kids were still little, yes I would, but they're healthy now, older and healthier.
Mr. Fontaine, how do I find out what the difference in cost to the plan was in throughout 2016 with the change in out-of-pocket maximum, including the prescription drug out-of-pocket maximum. And Ms. Bernard, while in case you can pull that up, what was the increase in premium to the member in 2016 and 2017? Average, if you have it.
I don't recall a premium increase since July 1 of 2015.
0?
I can check, right.
And to answer your question, if you go, I have it up on your screen. If you look at 2015's cost on a per employee per month basis, we were talking about total plan cost of $665. That increased to $716 in that 2015 to 2016 year. That represents a 7.7% increase in plan cost. Our claims went up 8.4% that particular year. That's a function of high-cost claimants, but it's also a function of that difference in benefits.
Mr. Fontaine, if 82% of the plan members don't ever reach more than $5,000 of out-of-pocket maximum, why did you not propose and show a projected savings on a $5,000 out-of-pocket maximum?
On a higher out-of-pocket maximum?
On a $5,000 instead of a $4,950.
Because I was wanting to model it after the period of when you had a $950 deductible and a $4,000 out-of-pocket on that grandfathered plan in 2015.
Thank you.
It would be helpful, perhaps, if you could give us an example. Say, a single individual on a basic PPO is going to go up $600 plus the $400 plus whatever it is on premium, and say they're on 5 generic drugs. Can you give us an example of what the total increase is going to be for that person?
In order for somebody to have any type of additional expense, the only one that would be on a first dollar basis of the benefit alternatives we're looking at is on the prescription drugs. So you're going to pay $5 more when you fill that generic prescription if that generic prescription costs $15 or more. Okay, so that'll be an impact, but for most of the members, they won't see an increased cost because if most of our members, that 82%, really are their out-of-pocket expense comes from a physician office copayment and a prescription drug. Okay, and not many of them are coming even close to reaching the out-of-pocket. So really the only difference that the majority of your members are going to feel is that difference in copayment when they fill a prescription drug. Very few, probably about 15%, would feel an additional cost from the current $49.50 that you have right now. $43.50 to the $49.50 if they had something catastrophic. So you have to have a pretty significant year of claims to get to that number.
We have any other questions for Mr. Fontaine?
I don't really have a question, but I just have a comment that I'd like to make before the meeting's over. Is the main reason I came to this meeting, I understand that we may certainly need an increase. The cost of medicine has gone up, and I've been just very happy that I have been able to participate as a retiree in the employee insurance program. My concern today is when I learned that the board had done away with the employee insurance committee and the insurance committee. And this really had an impact on me today because of the recent tax election. I voted for I was initially against the tax, and I know we're not here to discuss that, but I was eventually against it because I don't like taxes just like everybody else. But when I talked to several board members, I became convinced that we needed to let the past be the past, that this board was going to be more open and more willing and would work with us, and things were going to be different. And then I find out that they've done away with the employee insurance committee. They've done away with the insurance committee. And today, pardon me, Mr. Hidalgo, with all due respect to you, I don't think that was appropriate at all to stop comments from this audience. I just don't like taxation without representation, and that's what I feel that's what I'm afraid of we're going to get from this board, and it breaks my heart because employees do have a stake in this. I think presented properly that nobody is going to object to a moderate increase. We're not stupid people, we understand that. But don't make us feel that no matter what we say, it doesn't make any difference. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate the comments. I do want to say a couple of things in response to that, even though it's not on the agenda. I'm not quite sure where you got the information from, but I'm glad to tell you that it's pretty inaccurate. No one has made a decision to do away with any committee. This board has created a committee that was supposed to have been created many decades ago, which is the Board Insurance Committee. Every major aspect of this organization has a committee. Finance, facilities, the executive committee takes care of pretty much everything else. These committees will be run with structure, and so when we have a habit of members constantly repeating the same thing, as long as I'm the chairman, we'll call order to that. I apologize if you felt that was disrespectful, but there will be order called when the chairman of any committee feels it's necessary. Further, I'll say that if doing away with said committee might not be a bad idea, and I'll tell you why. If you look around, you've got more people in this room tonight than you have on any other committee night. And so I think it's a great idea for everyone to stay engaged at every opportunity. And so I encourage you, and you are invited to every insurance committee meeting, because they're public meetings that are publicized. The agendas are put out just like a regular meeting, required by law 24 hours. However, that won't happen. You're going to see it out on Fridays, if not sooner. So you can come to these committee meetings, and you'll notice that our committee meetings are not like our board meetings, where there's a lot more dialogue in a committee meeting. That's the purpose of having a committee meeting and not having two board meetings, so that you can have more interaction, not interruption, interaction. So no, ma'am, nothing has been done away with, but this board committee is going to do its job. I will tell you respectfully that for decades, the employee advisory committee has run this insurance plan. Okay? So this is what I'm talking about being out of order. I listened to you speak. Thank you very much. That committee's recommendations have been upheld on and on and on. I sat here before getting elected for 2 years. Every meeting, I made every board meeting that this organization had, and I watched it happen. Now we have a good consulting firm, and with your input and with their input, we're going to make necessary changes so that the plan can be the best it can be. Now we're going to get back to the agenda. Group health plan funding sources, Ms. Bernard.
Jeremy, somebody has a question.
I would just like to point out the inaccuracy of what you said, Mr. Hidalgo. I have sat on this board for quite some time. Don't throw something out and expect us to take it, because, sir, you were the one that misrepresented the advice of this committee, and I came for the first meeting last summer to ask for the correct recommendation, which the board went with. You guys use us when you want us to satiate or to do the investigation. And then I hear on the long run that we're not being consulted at all. So make up your mind. We are actually here to serve not you, but the taxpayers of Lafayette Parish and the thousands of employees and families that are affected when you guys vote. I am not unreasonable. I tend to be the voice of reason here. I'm asking, as she did earlier, when you speak to us, that you do it with respect. If I spoke to my students in the classroom the way that you just spoke to these adults who are professionals, I could be reprimanded by my supervisor. So I'm going to ask for accuracy. I'm going to ask for respect. And I thank you for coming for the 2 years, because I did see your presence. And you had very good input. You have very good understanding of what's going on and the numbers. I want us to be working together. It's counterproductive when we take opposite ends thinking that we're not in this for the same thing. We both want to save money. We both want great insurance for our employees and satisfaction all the way around.
Thank you for your comments. Now on to the agenda. 2.2, health plan funding sources. Ms. Bernard.
Yes, sir. I've put up on the screen, and it's attached to the agenda item, one of the charts for the basic PPO plan. This is the premium chart for that particular plan. They're all pretty much designed the same, even though the enhanced is the most expensive and the high deductible the lowest cost. This one is the one that most of our people are on. So I've broken it out by category. The total premium currently is $651 for an employee only or a retiree only who's not on Medicare. The way we divvy up the premium is the half-cent sales tax that was dedicated in 1988 reads that it should pay 50% of the employee-only premium. So when we look at the 651, divide it by 2, divide it in half, that's the half-cent. And then the rest of the premium is split between the employee's share and the general fund. So when we do an increase, typically what we do is we calculate what the half-cent sales tax must be according to the dedication, and then the rest of the increase we split between the board and the employee. That's how we've been doing it for as long as I can remember. And so that's an explanation of the fundings, where the money comes from. Any questions? Does that help?
That's pretty quick.
It's not difficult. It's not really complicated.
So
when we get to double employees, let me just point this out. That's 2 employees who are both entitled to a half-cent sales tax share. So what we do is we take that total premium and divide it in half. The other option would be for them each to be individuals on the plan, but in fact that would be inconvenient for them and also would actually cost more under the half-cent sales tax. So we just split the total family premium.
is the half-cent sales tax the only source of funding outside of the members' premium?
No, the general fund pays.
So whenever we finish with this, can we talk about the percentage
Absolutely.
breakup?
I mean, anytime.
Yep, whenever you're ready.
Okay, go.
Let's talk about the percentage differences.
Okay.
In totality. My understanding is there's 60% or so is paid for by the system and the 40% by the employee. But can you break that?
You want me to do a chart that breaks it down?
If you can just give me the percentages if you know them.
I don't know them right off.
Okay.
I mean, but it will vary a little bit category by category. But generally it's 60 to 66% board share to a third, maybe a little bit more of the employee share. Depending, if they have more dependents, when you're looking at family, the employee is going to bear a little bit more for the dependents than the board does.
This may be a question for Mr. Fontaine, I'm not sure, but as it relates to dependents, we have 5,500 employees on the plan? But about a total of 10,000 lives, right? What are some creative options in the market for non-employees? What are other organizations, self-funded or not, doing in some cases with non-employee participants on their plans?
Some employers, other school systems have adopted eligibility provisions whereby if the employee's spouse is eligible for group insurance at his or her employer and chooses to waive that coverage to become covered here or at their spouse's employer, that they pay a higher charge. It's called an employee dependent surcharge. Some employers, larger employers, have eligibility provisions that state if that dependent spouse is eligible for group insurance where he or she works, that they're not eligible to participate at all. You don't find that in many school systems, but you do find that dependent surcharge in many of them.
Any questions so far? Yes, ma'am.
I'm just wondering if all of these costs are medically related, or are there some salaries that come out of the premiums that are paid in?
I'm not sure I'm understanding your question.
Well, from the premiums that are paid into the system, do they all go toward the medical expenses, or are there some expenses like salaries that come out, administrative costs?
There's basically two costs to the plan, or actually three. We pay Blue Cross to administer the plan, process our claims, and provide the preferred provider organization of the network of hospitals, doctors, medical providers, and we buy or purchase reinsurance to protect the plan in the event of a large claim or aggregate large claims. Those are the fixed cost of the plan. So if we had 0 claims in any one month, we still are paying a portion to Blue Cross and to our reinsurer to protect the plan. The vast majority of the cost of the plan is claims. Some 96% of the cost is claims. So to answer your question, when we talk about a plan cost of $48 million, a small portion, you saw that basically $3 million of it is fixed cost.
So there, out of the premiums that are paid in, there are no administrative costs or salaries paid out of that here? No.
Yes, everything it takes to run the plan is paid from the plan. So that includes the salaries of the insurance staff, half of mine, and the others.
Is that a normal way of going, or should it come from the general fund budget?
No, ma'am, that's the normal way to run a plan. You need to put all your real costs in there so you know what it takes to run your plan.
I know you put your cost in there. I'm just wondering if the normal budget of a school system usually pays for salaries out of premiums that are paid into the system.
Well, it doesn't amount to a whole lot, to be honest with you, when you look at the big pot. But I guess any district can do it any way they want to. But if you were a fully insured plan, you would be paying all the salaries to that insurance company. So you think about it that way, it's part of running your plan.
Okay.
Matt, could you help me out? All right. In 2015 and 2016 separately, what was contributed by the school system to the OPEB trust?
Oh, sorry. 400,000
per year?
Yeah.
And we're on track for the same thing in 2017?
Correct. It's in the budget.
Thank you. Any other questions? Mr.
Yeah,
Angel?
I'd like to make a couple of comments if I could. Oh, somebody has a question?
When does this go in effect? For example, the exclusion of Walgreens and the other form, right, whatever the other one is. When does that go into effect? Because I assume we have to make a transfer of our medications to somewhere else.
The proposed changes for premiums would be effective July 1st, and the benefit changes would be effective on January 1st. As far as any change in your pharmacy, you would be identified through the claim system, and letters would be sent out to plan members that are utilizing Walgreens, Rite Aid. There'd be a lot of communication and education around that, so we would have a smooth transition, and it would be as painless as possible for the membership.
So we will receive a letter.
If you currently utilize Walgreens or Rite Aid and we implement that benefit change, yes, you would.
Thank you.
Up here.
Thank you. I guess this question is directed towards Matt. Last year, 2016, 2015, we contributed $400,000 each year to the OPM trust. Is that correct? OPM. How much total have we contributed towards that trust?
11 million.
It's a combination. The general fund has made direct contributions, and there have also been contributions. It's a combination through the fund has made contributions, but the general fund has also made contributions. I do have a spreadsheet on that. I don't have it with me, but I think the current balances in the fund is about $14 million. That includes earnings and interest, and I think the majority of that was from the general fund.
Ms. LaFontaine, using the figures that you gave us, single people will have to pay $700 out of pocket for the combination medical and pharmaceutical, while people that have husbands or children on the plan will save $2,000 on medical and have to pay $400 extra on pharmaceutical, which means they will have a saving of $1,600. Is there any way to equalize that so we're both either have to pay the same thing or have the same savings?
You're talking about the individual and family out of pocket. The reason we moved the family down to 10 is because we rarely see a situation where you have multiple family members reaching a maximum out of pocket, and we have to keep it within compliance. So there was not any reasoning behind taking it from 12 to 10 other than to keep it compliant. But if you try to balance that out, that is quite difficult because you can't really compare. It's not an even comparison to looking at a family out-of-pocket maximum versus a individual, because you're going to have several more individuals reaching an out-of-pocket maximum than you would family. Rarely do you see families reaching an out-of-pocket maximum. That's when two or more family members have had separate catastrophic type claims.
I'm sorry, I know we're jumping around, but I want to go back to the OPEB. Mr. Duga, the last 2 years, the $800,000 has come out of insurance fund, is that correct? Insurance budget, right? Okay. How much over the last 2 years have actually come out of the general fund that was in the budget? $500,000 over the last 2 years. So that's $250,000 a year and $400,000 a year from the insurance fund. Is that correct?
You might want to come to the mic.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just pulling up the spreadsheet. 2017, the general fund made a $500,000 deposit, and the insurance fund made a $400,000 deposit.
Okay. I'm curious, how many other parishes are actually contributing to this?
Two, their own OPEB trust, two I'm aware of right now, and I think there's two more that are opening a OPEB trust.
Okay. I guess my concern with that, and I've expressed it before to this committee, is that considering this state of our district, we just had a sales tax proposition fail for facilities. Would that money not be more wisely used towards repairing some of those buildings that we saw pictures of during the campaign? And I know you're going to answer me with the tax rating and that sort of thing, but I think we're down to dire needs now in our schools as far as facilities go. And I have a concern with continuing to contribute with that. Could we not suspend that until we can get a handle on our budget? I just think it can be put to wiser use. Even though you're looking at bonds down the road, we're going to get bonded out real quickly. I mean, we obviously need more revenue in the district to take care of our facilities. I think this is one way, not that $400,000 is going to fix our problems, but it certainly could fix some of our problems, or at least be a start and a good faith effort to the public that we're putting some money into this. That's the only comment that I have, and I don't expect you to answer. It's just, I guess I'm expressing my opinion.
Oh.
It would stay in the insurance fund. You can't take the insurance fund money to use it on facilities, but but it would stay in our insurance fund, but then you were saying the general fund wouldn't put their 500. That could be redirected. Oh, that's definitely a finance person question.
When we have our ratings calls with S&P and Moody's, they definitely ask about this. And this is something that they've highlighted actually in the ratings calls that go out to the people that buy our bonds, that we do have an OPEB trust and that we have funded it. Now, what we try to tell them is that we have a plan to slowly increase this over time to get to the obligation so that our retirees are guaranteed health care through the OPEB trust eventually. If we stop doing that, then that makes the validity of that statement kind of watered down, in that we didn't put the 400, we didn't put 420,000. We're not increasing it even though every year we say we do. So that hurts us in those ratings adjustments and in the calls. But the fact that we are addressing it, the fact that we're fact that we are addressing that fact we have an OPEB trust and it is funded puts us in, I guess, the second category. There are people that have fully funded it. The state of Kansas is fully funded. There are some districts that are more aggressively funding it than we are. Us and the two other districts in Louisiana that do have a trust that are funding it do get that is disclosed and is asked particularly by Standard & Poor's and by Moody's and by Fitch when we have those ratings conferences. It's also in the CAFR, which is the people that buy our debt, read our CAFR. There's a big paragraph just on that and the progressive way we're trying to handle this. So basically we devote our confidence on
I guess my question is, I'm sorry, my question is, with only two districts, other districts in the state contributing, are all of the districts, those other districts, rated lower than us? Is their rating a lot lower?
The ratings are based on a whole bunch of things, but that's a consideration of our rating. Lafayette Parish has one of the highest ratings in the state.
And they don't contribute. Okay, thank you.
Lafayette Parish has one of the highest ratings in the state. We just got upgraded.
I wanted to make a couple of comments. First of all, I don't recall, and I know I didn't vote for it, disbanding the insurance committee. Now, I've been here 6.5 years, and you're going to be stuck with me for another 2.5 at least. So I don't think as a board we disbanded the insurance committee. I don't think Dr. Aguilar disbanded the insurance committee. I don't think anybody had the authority to disband it. But I don't want to be adversarial. I just want to make a comment. I would be more than happy to meet and with the if if it's in fact disbanded, if it were to reband, if you will, I'd be more than happy to meet with the insurance committee. If we could work it around, both of our schedules, I'd be happy to meet with them. I would also, obviously can't put words in his mouth, but I would request that the superintendent meet with you if you can work it out with his schedule. If the insurance committee wanted to meet with us, I'd like to have some dialogue. I really would. I'd like to make one other comment and go back in history, 30 or 40, 30 something years. But there's a raison d'etre, trust me. Back in 1982 and 1983, President Reagan wanted to spend billions of dollars to beef up the military. He wanted to take World War II ships primarily that had 16-inch guns, which were bigger than any other guns we had, and refurbish them. And it took billions and billions of dollars. And sort of like today, you had a Republican president and a Republican Congress, and still there were about 25 Republican representatives that didn't want to vote for that part of the budget to spend all those billions refurbishing World War II ships. So Reagan called them into the White House, these 25 that were opposed to it, and said, okay, what's the problem here? And the general consensus, the general response was, Mr. President, my constituents don't want that. My constituents are opposed to that. To which President Reagan responded, I didn't think this was about your constituents. I thought this was about the country. And of course, ultimately, they ended up voting for it. It passed, and he beefed up the military. That's a grand scale, I understand, but this subject is not about those of you here only or those of us here only. It's about our system. It's about our whole parish. We have to think of everyone in the parish who's involved. And so I would just hope that we would kind of maybe, on both sides of this desk, that we would kind of give and take a little bit, Understand, if I'm sitting in your shoes, I don't want to pay a nickel more. I don't want no deductible. I want it all, If the other side of the fence is, you got to kind of pitch in because, we got, expenses here. We got to have them. And I just would like to see a little bit more dialogue. And I'm willing to do it, anytime you want to. I must agree, though, with Mr. Hidalgo when he said that, and I've actually attended an insurance committee meeting several years ago, but there are more of you here tonight than the insurance committee meeting, because I remember the insurance committee meeting had 3, 4, 5 members. I don't remember how many members. But I think it's great for y'all to come like this, and that's, I appreciate input. But here again, it needs to be rational and courteous on both sides. And I think if we work together, we can work this out, And I want to make one more comment, and that is these deductibles. I've been hearing about these deductibles. From what I hear, we have a pretty good deal. And I'm not on this plan. I'm not on the insurance plan, nor am I on the one that the Obamacare, whatever you want to call it. But from what I've been hearing, a lot of the people in this country have their deductibles have doubled and tripled under this program, and I think that we're all fortunate that didn't happen to us. So not only that, but some of the premiums are going sky high, and there are people that just can't even meet that deductible, much less collect anything on the insurance plan. So let's keep everything in perspective, and I can assure you that we're going to do everything we can to make it right, and I'm going to ask of you that you work with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Angel. I do want to not make a motion. I do want to make a couple of recommendations. Before I do, I would like to address the comments that were made earlier from a member, and I sincerely appreciate the fact that you had an opportunity to get your sincere sentiments off your chest. I just want you to know you stated that you're here to represent the people. And yes, and I appreciate that, but I was elected to represent the people. And we have heard a lot tonight about the recent tax proposal that failed. And you know what I'm hearing from the people is cut positions, cut this, cut that. Those people, I don't believe rightfully so, are tired of paying 60% of this health plan. They're tired of paying all of the things that they perceive to be excessive. It is a misperception out there, but it's what I hear about. So I think you should have the right, and you do have the right. You will always have the right to come into these meetings and argue your best point to get the best deal for you and your fellow employees, which my wife is one of. So I respect that. But I also have constituents who are tired of what they believe is mismanagement of money and overweighted salaries and benefits. And so it's what is fought. I respect your position. I'm not trying to disrespect you, but it is something that has to be taken more seriously than it has been taken, not from you, from this board. And so I do apologize if you were in any way offended. It's not what it's intended to be. However, again, I mean, I have a responsibility to run the meeting a certain way, and I'm going to do that to the best of my ability. And if I don't live up to everyone's expectations, I want to apologize in advance. Ms. Bernard, I know that you have to prepare your budget because we're about to get in these crazy budget meetings coming up here. I'm not making a motion because I still have a lot of questions, and I still have a few things that I want to understand from Mr. Fontaine, and I still have a few things that I want to recommend and see if they're even possible. In the meantime, I'll ask you, unless the Mr. Angel objects, use this. I think this is a really good start on preparing your budget because I know that you want to start plugging in the numbers, but know that it could change because none of this is done until it goes before the entire board. So, for example, the change at Walgreens, that may not happen. It hasn't gone before the board. So none of this is set in stone. However, a recommendation from me to you, not the committee to the board, is use these numbers to plug in for your budget, knowing that some of this may very well change between now and the end of time. Yes, ma'am. Could we get a mic, please?
Is it possible for the board to not take the $400 from the insurance monies? If the board feels that $500,000 is in their budget and they can afford to spend it, you're telling us our insurance, the cost of insurance is going up, prescription is going up, but you're still taking $400,000 from the plan. Is it possible for 2017 not to send that $400,000?
I think the answer is yes. I do think it's possible. I think it's possible to send nothing. And that would be certainly a board decision. However, I will say that I am actually going to recommend increasing that amount. And I'm going to tell you why. Just like the facilities issues we have now, the retired teacher, the young lady in the back mentioned, she was very accurate. For years we've neglected facilities, and now we're trying to scratch around to figure out how to pay for it. If we continue for years to neglect the future retirees, see, you all have a good plan, I think. You all, the retirees here in the room. And if we continue to neglect the stability of future retirees, who's going to pay for that later on? So just like the facilities have been neglected, I don't want to neglect. And I'm not going to ask you all to pay more to put in the OPEB. I'm going to try to suggest some of the savings that we're going to, because we're going to experience more savings here than we need to get the 3% increase. I'm going to suggest that maybe more of the savings go into the OPEB. It's not a lot of money on the big scheme of things, but every little bit matters. So again, it's not to slight you, but it is for the stability of future retirees is the reason I'm looking at it that way. I think there was one more question.
I'd just like to say something to the advantage of a committee. I've heard about the disadvantage. The people here, the advantage of the committee is usually, as I understand the committee, is part of representational government. We choose people from among our peers who we feel are best qualified to represent us, and they make a commitment to come and represent us. The people that show up at these meetings do not have that commitment, and they may not have that same expertise. So it is important in a representative government, which I thought we had, that we have such a committee that we feel can best represent us.
Thank you, and you're exactly right. You are certainly welcome to convene as a committee. You, meaning your representatives, can convene as a committee anytime you choose. No one's going to try. I'm not going to try to stop that, and I don't think anybody here will. However, what you're referring to, or at least what I perceive you referring to, is the representative government. If you look at every level of government, the committees are made up of the government. So we are the committee. That is what we are here for, to get your I'm not quite done yet. We're here to get your input. We want you all to be here in droves to give us input. You see, you have one representative that's on the Employee Advisory Committee who, several months ago, we were up here talking about insurance scenario. And the young lady came up and she gave her a research that she had done based on that topic regarding our insurance policy. And then she ended the conversation with, but listen, I'm not an expert, and I'm not the one that knows this. We have an expert, and it's Hub. And we have to entrust in our consultant that we pay to give us sound advice. We know, as Mr. Angel said, sir, I agree, you want lower premiums, lower deductibles, the best you can get. And I wish we could pay 100% of it. But it's the evolution of this, it's not going to happen. And so the tough decisions a lot of times get cut off by vocal groups. And that's okay, except when it's just one faction of the group. We still have employees that are not represented in a large portion here. We have employees represented, but not in a large portion. And so it's just like the OPEB argument. If I were you, I would be having the same argument. Rip the OPEB trust. But if I were an employee in the system, I'd be saying, put the money in the OPEB trust. That's what we're here for. And I respect if that's not the scenario that's preferred, but that's what we're here for. One more, Ms. Bernard.
I do want to thank, I see that most of our employee committee members are here, and I appreciate that. And I'd offer this suggestion. Many years ago, they met jointly. You would convene here, and they would be here, and we'd do our presentation, and they would actually vote on their, after discussion, vote on their recommendation to you all and to the board. Oh, Lisette, oh goodness. Probably with this board being elected, but I have to say though, the previous board, they weren't coming anymore. So it made it real, it's been, yeah, but I'm talking before these guys. Like when Mr. Beasley and all those fellas were on the board, they stopped coming. So we kind of let it lax, but I think that worked out pretty well because it kept me from having to do two separate presentations and allowed them to hear all of your voices, which you're doing tonight, but you're not functioning like you would like to function, and that is to come together and make a recommendation to these guys.
And
sorry, I talk like a Cajun.
And definitely more is better, because I've gotten information from a committee member, and then you go visit a school and you got 5 teachers in a row say, no, absolutely not, I disagree with that. So, you know, I believe am here to represent the masses, and I want as many of those masses here to share their opinion so that we can come to a balance, as Mr. Angel was speaking of. And it's going to be balanced because, you know, we're not looking at major changes here, thankfully. So I think that the compromise here is going to be palatable. At least I think. I hope. All right. So you got that? All right. Any other questions? Thank you. This meeting is adjourned.